You never think your own children will try to erase you. But then again, you never think you'll bury your husband of 51 years and be called mentally unfit before the dirt on his casket settles. My name's Bernadine May Holloway, Bernie to most, mom to my 3 boys, and Nana to 6 grandbabies. I'm 72 years old, sharper than the kitchen knives I bought back in '94 and still use every Sunday. I drive my own car, pay my own bills, and can crochet a twin-size blanket in 4 sittings flat. And yet, 2 months after my husband, Walter, passed away, I sat on my own porch in a folding chair I paid for, being told I was too unstable to attend the reading of his will. By my own sons. Mom, Thomas started, real soft like he was breaking bad news to a toddler. It's really better for everyone if you rest. You've been forgetting things and getting confused. We don't want to upset you. I blinked at him. Hard. Confused. I said, well, you said last week Dad mentioned the boat trip in his will. But Dad's been gone for 2 months. You probably just remembered wrong. It was Jason who chimed in next. It's not that we're trying to keep you out, Mom. It's just we talked to an attorney, and he said if there's any doubt about your state of mind, it could delay probate. Delay? I repeated. Mess with the process, said Jeremy. Don't worry. We'll handle everything. We've got it covered. I sat there, arms folded, feeling the wind die out of my lungs. Walter and I built this life together. Every brick, every dime, every inch of what we had, we earned side by side. Through 2 recessions, cancer scares, layoffs, and raising 3 boys with more appetite than sense. We never had much, but we made it work. And my reward? Being told I imagined the will. That I was confused. That the woman who paid the mortgage while Walter was in surgery didn't deserve to know what he left behind. They didn't say the words out loud, but I heard what they meant. Sit down, Mom. You're old now. You don't matter anymore. But here's what they forgot. Old don't mean stupid. And I hadn't imagined the will. I'd sat right beside Walter at the kitchen table while he reviewed it for the 4th time. He told me he made sure I was taken care of no matter what. He showed me the pages, had me initial the draft. We even laughed about how Jason would complain when he found out the cabin wasn't going to him. But now they were trying to rewrite history, rewrite me out of it. So I smiled at them, said, all right, boys, I understand. They seemed relieved, but inside, I was already planning, because I might be 72, but I know how to read court records, and I sure as hell know how to dial an elder law attorney. I waited until the house was quiet. That night, after the boys left and I had washed the dishes no one offered to help with, I poured myself a glass of iced tea, sat at the kitchen table, and pulled out the little black notebook Walter and I used to keep in the top drawer. That notebook had every password, every contact, every lawyer's name we'd ever needed. Walter was old school like that. He didn't trust the cloud, and frankly, neither do I. I flipped to the wills and legal section, and there it was. Daniel M. Groves, estate attorney, with his direct number scribbled next to it in Walter's handwriting. I called the next morning. Groves and Associates, a cheerful voice answered. How can I help? Yes, I need to speak with Mr. Groves regarding the Holloway estate. Are you one of the beneficiaries, ma'am? I'm his wife. A pause. Then she said she'd check and put me on hold. 30 seconds later, a man with a gravelly voice came on the line. Mrs. Holloway, he asked. I'm terribly sorry for your loss. I was surprised not to see you at the reading. I was told I was too fragile to attend. I replied evenly. Apparently, I'm mentally unfit now. There was a long pause. Well, he cleared his throat. That's not what Mr. Holloway intended. You were listed as the primary beneficiary. Everything was to go to you first, then the boys only upon your passing. He made it very clear. We notarized the will 6 months before his death. In fact, your initials are on page 4. I gripped the phone tighter. So, why didn't I hear about the reading? He hesitated again. I was told by your sons that you were hospitalized and that there was an active mental health petition filed with the county. I froze. A what? They presented documentation, a signed statement, said you'd been declared temporarily incompetent and that the court assigned one of them as your legal guardian pending an evaluation. My hand trembled. That's a lie. I'm sorry, Mrs. Holloway. If that's the case, you need to file an emergency motion immediately. I thanked him, hung up, and just sat there at the table staring out the window, hearing the mockingbird sing like it was any other day. But it wasn't, because now this wasn't just a betrayal. It was fraud. They didn't just shut me out of the will. They created a paper trail to make it look like I didn't exist. And worse, they filed a fake claim with the county court, used my own grief and my age as weapons. My own sons, but they forgot who they were dealing with. I wasn't raised to play victim. I was raised in the South by a woman who survived Jim Crow and still had time to press her church hats the night before service. So I picked up the phone again, this time dialing a number Liana, my neighbor's daughter, a young paralegal, gave me last year when her mother was dealing with a shady inheritance case. Elder law, she'd whispered like it was a secret weapon. Get you someone who knows how they treat older women in the system. I called, explained everything. By the next day, I had a meeting set. Not with just any lawyer, but with Doris Hightower, a woman who had made a name out of eating greedy sons for breakfast. And I was ready to serve up a full-course meal. You ever sit across from someone and know you've got them beat, but you let them talk just to hear the sound of their own rope tightening? That's how I felt sitting across from Doris Hightower in that small law office. Drinking lemon tea she poured herself. No sugar, just straight citrus and fire. She listened as I laid out everything. Dates, conversations, the "you're too fragile" speech for my boys. She didn't interrupt much, just nodded, pen flying across her legal pad. Then she looked up and said the words I didn't know I needed to hear. Mrs. Holloway, they're about to learn why old ladies carry purses big enough to hold receipts, and how. I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in months. Then Doris leaned in and dropped the plan. We're going to let them bury themselves, she said. I want you to text them. Tell them you're feeling better, that you talked to a friend's son who's an attorney, and you just want to understand what Walters will said. Harmless, curious, naive. Like a sweet little granny holding a magnifying glass. Exactly, she grinned. And if I know men like your sons, they'll come rushing in to protect you from learning too much. We sent the texts that night, one by one. Jason replied first. Mom, please don't stress yourself with legal stuff. We got it handled. Everything's fine. Thomas added, you know what Dad wanted. It's not about paperwork. And Jeremy, he was the bold one. I'll swing by with a copy of the will, just the version you saw before. Nothing overwhelming. Nothing overwhelming. Huh? That's when Doris pulled out the real trick. Let them bring their fake documents, she said. I'll have a paralegal here, posing as my assistant, recording the whole meeting. You act frail. Play along. Let them lie out loud. Is that legal? Perfectly. They're coming into a law office to discuss an estate. The moment they bring out documents, it's business. And I have every right to record business conducted on my premises. I was stunned and delighted. You're dangerous, I told her. Doris smiled. I'm prepared. So we set the bait. 2 days later, all 3 of my boys walked into her office. Jason in his wrinkled polo, Thomas with a folder clutched like a nervous child, and Jeremy chewing gum like it was a personality trait. I sat there in a cream cardigan, hair in a soft bun, glasses slightly tilted like I was unsure where to look. Doris stood at the side with her assistant taking notes quietly. Hey, Mom, Jason said, sweetly too sweet. You look good. I feel clearer, I said in the voice you used to calm scared kittens. But I can't remember what was in the will. You said it didn't really matter. Jeremy jumped in. Right. I brought a copy just to help you remember. You know, if you need it. Thomas slid the folder across the table. Doris nodded toward it. Mind if I take a peek? Just for clarity. They froze. Jason tried to play it cool. Sure. It's just the simplified version. Perfect, she said, already flipping through the pages. Then she paused, pulled out her glasses, and read something closely. You say this was signed 6 months ago. Jeremy nodded too fast. Yeah, Dad did it with our attorney. Which one? Doris asked casually. Jason hesitated. I think his name was Gentry. Doris didn't even blink. Dr. Gentry, the psychiatrist? Jeremy's ears turned red. No, I mean, he had credentials. Doris closed the folder slowly and stood. Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for coming in today. My name is Doris Hightower, estate and elder law attorney, representing Mrs. Holloway. This meeting has been recorded for legal purposes. They froze. Jason dropped his pen. Thomas looked like he might pass out. Jeremy's jaw locked up like a broken car door. Then Doris dropped the final hammer. You've just admitted on record that you brought falsified estate documents to interfere with a will in which your mother is the legal primary beneficiary. You also admitted knowledge of a non-existent doctor whom you falsely used to declare her mentally unfit in a court petition. No one spoke. Mrs. Holloway, she turned to me with a smile, will be filing a fraud and elder abuse lawsuit by morning, and a criminal complaint if you'd like to proceed. I folded my hands in my lap and said gently, let them feel what it's like to be left out of something important. And I meant it, because that's what they'd done to me. They shut the door in my face and locked it with lies. But baby, I had just kicked it wide open, with a lawyer in heels beside me and a recorder full of receipts. You'd think grown men, especially ones bold enough to forge documents and write off their own mother, would have the sense to stick together under pressure. But that's the funny thing about cowards. They never hold their shape when things get hot. They melt. And Lord, did my boys melt. The very next morning, Doris sent formal notices, sealed, hand-delivered, to each of my sons. Not lawsuits, not yet. Just a notice of intent to pursue legal action pending settlement discussion. It was written in big, clean, terrifying legal language. Enough to make a man's mouth go dry just holding the envelope. Less than 3 hours later, Jason was the first to call. His voice was shaky. Mom, I didn't know it was going to get this serious. Can we just talk? I told him I had legal representation and wouldn't be discussing anything outside a formal setting. My voice was calm, steady, and just attached enough to let him know I wasn't bluffing. Next was Thomas, but he didn't call. He showed up on my porch, flowers in one hand, cheap grocery store tulips, and a pitiful look in his eyes. Mom, please, he said. You have to believe me. This wasn't all my idea. I didn't invite him in. I stood right there. Thomas, I said, while you looked me in the eye and told me I was confused and fragile. You didn't blink once. He looked down at his shoes. That was Jason's plan. He said if we could prove temporary incompetence, we could access the accounts quicker. I swear, Jeremy, and I didn't want to push it. And yet you did, I said. He shifted, nervous. If I tell you everything, can you talk to your lawyer about backing off? I didn't answer, just watched him squirm like a boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar and crumbs on his face. Then, not 2 hours after Thomas left, I get a call from Doris. You'll never guess what just happened, she said, amused. Try me. All 3 sons called requesting a mediation meeting. Separately. That meeting? Phew, let me tell you. It was held at Doris's office in the conference room with a long oak table and glass walls. I came dressed like I was going to church and hosting afterward. Gray skirt suit, brooch on the collar, patent leather purse in hand. I sat tall, quiet, and ready. The boys shuffled in one by one. No smiles this time. No hi, Mom. Just guilt all over their faces like sunburn. Doris opened the meeting like a symphony conductor, smooth and composed. We're here to offer you an opportunity to settle this privately before any criminal filings or civil suits move forward. But I want to be absolutely clear. Your mother is prepared to go the full distance. They started sweating before she finished the sentence. Jason jumped in first. I was just trying to protect the estate. Mom's been under a lot of stress. Jason, you told us it was airtight, Thomas cut in. You said Doris wouldn't bother digging into the paperwork. Doris raised her eyebrows but didn't speak. Jeremy finally snapped. Don't put this all on him. I didn't even know the document was fake until it was too late. Oh, now you didn't know? Jason shot back. You signed it, dumb. Enough, Doris said, finally speaking up. You 3 used fake medical records to cut your mother out of her rightful inheritance. That's elder fraud and abuse in a court of law. You've each admitted parts of it now. If you don't want to face full prosecution, here's what's going to happen." She laid out the terms. Immediate transfer of all estate accounts back under my name. Formal retraction letter signed by each of them admitting wrongdoing and clearing me of any claims of incompetence. No contact clause on financial matters unless initiated by me in writing. And lastly, each of them was to pay Doris's legal fees in full. Jason looked like he was about to vomit. Thomas's eye twitched. Jeremy leaned back like he'd just been punched. But none of them said no. They all signed because they knew they were cooked. And the best part? Not one of them made eye contact with me the entire time. Not until I stood to leave, purse slung over my shoulder. Then I looked at each one of them and said calmly, "You treated me like a burden, but now you've learned I wasn't the weakest link in this family. I was the anchor." And baby, I walked out of that building without a backward glance. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't reach for my phone. I just sat on the edge of the bed in the soft blue quiet of dawn, listening to the house breathe. It was the first time in months I didn't feel like I was waiting for something, waiting to be blindsided, ignored, or explained away. No, that part was over now. I got dressed slowly. Nothing fancy. Just jeans, a light jacket, and Walter's old flannel tucked under my arm like a memory I still wanted close. I brewed a cup of coffee, poured the rest into a thermos, and grabbed a single folding chair from the shed-out back. Then I drove out to the cemetery. It was a small veterans plot just past the edge of town. Neatly lined rows of stone, every name etched with pride. Walter had served in Vietnam. He never talked much about it, but when he walked through that place, he stood straighter. I figured today I'd try to do the same. I found his headstone like I always did, third row from the big oak, right beside Mr. Alvarez, who passed the same week Walter did. I unfolded the chair, sat down, and poured 2 cups from the thermos. One for me, one for him. "I handled it," I said quietly. I stared at his name, Walter Jerome Holloway, and waited for the breeze to answer back. "They lied, Walt. Our own boys. They took your will and used it like a knife. Tried to carve me out of everything. Out of us." My voice cracked, but I didn't cry. "Not this time. I think you'd be disappointed. But I also think you'd be proud of me. Because I didn't just survive it, Walter. I stopped it." I took a slow sip of coffee. The wind shifted. "You remember how we used to say that getting older was like becoming invisible? That people stop looking at you, like you're fading out of frame." I smiled a little. Well, they looked away, all right. But while they were busy underestimating me, I built a wall of receipts and truth and handed it to a woman with courtroom heels and a fire in her briefcase. I reached into my purse and pulled out something small. A pocket photo. Just him and me on our 40th anniversary, dancing in the backyard. Jason had taken it. Funny how things circle back. I pressed the photo beside the headstone, tucked just under a smooth rock so it wouldn't blow away. "You were the love of my life, Walt. And losing you broke something in me I don't think I'll ever fully get back. But I'm still here. I'm still standing." I paused. And from now on, I'm not shrinking to make space for anyone who tried to erase me. The sun was higher now. Light hit his name just right, like he was listening. I stayed a few more minutes, then folded up my chair, packed up the cups, and turned toward the car. But before I opened the door, I looked back one more time and said, "You raised a fighter, Walter. You just didn't know it until now."